Great. So,
Yeah,
all that.
Okay, thank you.
So our last talk of this session is from Sherilyn Wright, who works at Cambridge Quantum Computing. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Hello. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Like he says, I work for Cambridge Quantum Computing as a scientist. I just wanted to say to those of you that are studying at Bristol, this isn't to exclude those of you that aren't physicists. This is just because I came here and did physics, and this is a building I spent a great deal of time in. This is actually the picture that's directly off my master's thesis, so it means a lot to me to come back here and talk to you guys about what I've been up to over the past few years. I wanted to keep this, as well as giving you like a really brief introduction to CQC, which will be really brief because, as you'll see, there's a lot of different areas that we cover, and I can't do it justice in 15 minutes. But I wanted to also touch on my very personal experience in joining industry, and kind of cover answering some of the questions that I would have wanted to have answered when I was choosing to leave academia and join industry. Okay, so there I am. This is me and I think Tyndall. You can actually, a few of you are in this pic. Tom is over there in the corner drinking beer. So this, I graduated Bristol Physics in 2017. I did my master's here in physics, and I was doing it in chip-based quantum key distribution. And my supervisors are actually Jake and Chris, who now are part of KETS. So it's really cool to see the work that they've been doing, which is super cool. So yeah, I decided to leave academia and see what it was like to work for a company. I was never fully certain that that's what I wanted to do, but I gave it a go. And during my time at university, I developed a sort of strong interest in quantum cryptography. So I wanted to have a look online and see if there even were companies that you could join that were doing research in this space. And that's how I found CQC. And now it turns out there's quite a few of them, as you've seen over the past day, and you'll see more of them tomorrow. There's tons of really cool companies doing research-led stuff in this space, if that's something that you're interested in. So yeah, as I said, I wanted to answer some of the questions that I actually personally get asked quite a lot from people, whether they're interested in joining industry or not. They just, maybe it's a side of things that you don't necessarily see. So these are some of the most common questions I get asked. So while I'm answering this last one, I'm going to try and also answer some of the questions that are up there. And if you have any more, then I welcome them, obviously. So who is CQC? The company was established in 2014, and it spun out of Cambridge University, but it's now a fully independent and private company separate to the uni, although we do still collaborate with them on several things. And we're a research-led organisation that spans across multiple disciplines, as you see. So we have work in quantum software, and then from that, work in quantum chemistry. We have the natural language processing and machine learning teams, and then also cryptography. And in all of these areas, there's sort of fundamental science being explored out of interest, whilst there's also products that spring up out of our research areas in some cases, right? And you can see some of them in bold, some have TM next to them. And we also work with the government on and NQUET on the Quantum Readiness Program, National Quantum Readiness Program. And this is basically just us going out to large companies and teaching people about the potential impact of emerging quantum technology. So the team overall is around 100 people now, of which 60 are scientists. And this is people who are graduates of masters, PhDs, and then a few people who are midway through PhDs that work with us. And we have offices all over really, so the main ones being in the UK, some across the US, and even in Japan, and we just opened up one in Oxford as well, which isn't on there. And as a company, we really like to collaborate with people both industrial and academic. So this is just a few of the companies and institutions that we collaborate with. This is actually an old list, and it's a lot more now, some of the people who you've already heard from today. So yeah, as I said, we span across quite a few areas of research. So from the more mature areas of like software and cryptography with like direct applications, like chemistry is starting to emerge, through to the more nascent fields of natural language processing and machine learning. And I'm going to try and give you a really quick introduction to the things we're doing in all of these areas. But you'll see that on each slide I've included like one or two key papers that are a good start. If it's something that you were interested in and want to see more about what we're doing, then check them out. But there's obviously more online. So I'll start with the quantum software team. So this is the team. I actually have someone here from this team, Silas Wood. There you go, the Silas. So if you have questions about this, he's around today and tomorrow to answer them. But the kind of jewel in the crown of what these guys do is their compiler ticket. So this you use to well, we've heard about compilers already, but you're translating algorithms into executable quantum circuits on quantum computers, and it's doing things like optimizing physical like qubit layout whilst reducing the required number of operations you need in order to do what you want to do. And they really encourage you to have a play around with this. If this is something you're interested in, then pip install PyTicket is everywhere. Like, download it and have a go. It's really cool to work with. And yeah, have a read of what they're working on. And then we have the quantum software for quantum chemistry team. So this is called Human. We've heard a bit about VQEs, and it's similar to some of the stuff that you've heard about already. But CQC are really doing some pioneering work in this emerging field. So if this is something you're interested in, I really encourage you to go and have a read up of this, the work that they're doing. We then have the cryptography team. So this is the team that I am part of. And our kind of main product is this Iron Bridge, which some of you have been talking to about, some of you have heard of it. It's an entire cryptographic platform, but it has a device-independent quantum random number generator at the core. So this is actually the only hardware that CQC has at the minute. And it's a photonic device, and it stems from some of our more fundamental work that we're doing on device-independent randomness amplification. And at the minute it's currently integrated into post-quantum crypto schemes, but we're looking to have a future in QKD and get involved in quantum communications in general. And this is actually where I wanted to address one of the questions that I put up in the beginning, which is about publishing papers. So all of the other papers that I've included from other departments have been, late 2019, 2020 papers, and they're doing very research-intensive things, and they update papers a lot, and they're able to publish frequently what they're doing. But a lot of the time, when stuff that you're working on is tied to a product, you aren't able to publish what you're doing until something is fully developed. And this is a good example of that. So stuff that I've been working on, we haven't published much since the original paper that was by Fernando Brandão people. This is our original protocol that our PureNG is built upon, but we've actually made significant modifications to it. And we should be releasing results of implementation and those changes soon. But at the minute, there's not much you can read about online about it. Okay, so then we also have the natural language processing team and machine learning and quantum machine learning recently. This is natural language processing in particular. We do a lot of this work in collaboration with the University of Oxford, and this is where we've just opened up a new office working in this space. We actually hosted a conference dedicated to natural language processing in December last year, I think it was. So yeah, they're doing some cool stuff in the space. So again, I'd encourage you to go and read about it if you're interested. And then here's a bunch of stuff I'm not going to go through, but there's a lot of things that spring up that are, for the moment, pure research, things that we're hoping to look into. People have brought up things that they think might be interesting, and they've been able to go and explore that. So if there's anything that catches your eye, just in case you want to go read more, there's some of the stuff that we are looking into at the minute and in the future. And as I say, the best way to find out about what we do is to go to the website and look at the publications tab, or if it's cryptography that you're interested in, come talk to me. I'm here today and tomorrow as well. So I said I'd keep it about personal experience as well, and I wanted to talk to you a bit about my job and what I typically do in a day, I guess. So I'm a quantum information scientist is my job title in the cryptography team, and I started as an experimentalist, so that was tied more to what I'd been doing in my master's. So I was building some of our first prototype hardware in the photonics lab when I started. But I feel like an experimentalist by trade and a theorist by heart, and I decided that I wanted to move more into the theory side of things, and luckily that was something that I was able to sort of do in the company. I was able to transition over, which I really appreciate. So now I spend more time in the design of new protocols and stuff like that. So a typical days, I go into my office, I work for a team of like 15 people, so that's quantum optical engineers, software, electronics engineers, cryptographers, theorists. My team of theorists is very small, we're only 3 people, so it's a really like engaging thing to do, I guess. We're just constantly working on blackboards. And I spend most of my time, like I say, in designing things for a product. And what that means is I have a lot of deadlines put on me in building a product, which is something that you get more often than I guess you would have had in academia. And I'm not necessarily setting my own goals all of the time, right? So there's less independence in that sense. Yeah, so I guess I have a little bit less independence in terms of working on a product, but then some of the more fundamental research that we're doing, particularly in my area, which is like randomness, I find fundamentally interesting. So I'm allowed to do sort of more personal research and read papers and expand my knowledge on things that I find interesting, although they are somewhat aligned with the general direction of what we're working on in the team. And then I also get to see the business side of things a little bit. So in a typical day, I might be called into meetings as like a technical expert, which is a fun departure from reading papers sometimes. Or I might be working on a presentation for some like industrial or academic conference. So that's cool too. But mostly my time is divided between scribbling on a blackboard with the theory team and then keeping in touch with the implementation side of things in our photonics lab. This is completely irrelevant to the storyline, but I just wanted to show you guys that on our API for the post-quantum cryptography stuff, the iron bridge for our product is actually the Clifton suspension bridge, and I didn't notice this for ages until a few months into the company. Which, I mean, there is actually a real iron bridge, and I don't know why they didn't go with that, but I'm happy that they went with the Clifton suspension bridge, so I find that cool. So then, lastly, the reasons why I personally decided to move to industry, and this is obviously very subjective and everybody has a different way of looking at things, and other people in industry might disagree with what I have to say about it. Also, I hope people, I'm sure everyone will get the reference and it doesn't look like I'm suggesting that the question is like staring death in the face or something. So personally, I find the intersection between like quantum research and then real world application really interesting. And it's a really exciting, newly forming industry, right? So, and you have the opportunity to be a part of how that industry forms. You get to have influence over that, which is really cool. So you talk about like the application of the research that we're doing, but it's actually industry that are going to have a really large role to play in rolling that out and making a difference to people's everyday lives. So to have influence over the way the industry is going and the kind of things that will become available is something that I find really, really interesting. And it's not just about industry in general. It's so more personal to me and my company. I was in a unique position that I say the company started in 2014, but my department's only like 2 years old. So I've got to see the department built from the ground up and have influence over how that was shaped, which was really cool. So on my first day, I actually came in on a Saturday when I was meant to start the Monday, because they had no one else that wanted to come in on a Saturday to receive some like optical tables that were being delivered. And I basically showed up to an empty lab, and they said, where do you want everything, and what are you going to need in your lab? So I basically got to decide what was going to go into the optics lab originally, which was really cool. And now I've got to see it grow to where it is today, which is like something that is obviously cool to me. And then I guess lastly, one of my favourite things about working in industry, which you do have to some extent in academia, but when you're working in industry, it's, you know, you have direct funding there, it's a significantly easier thing to do, but it's to travel a lot and work and collaborate with like all different kinds of people in different roles in business and science. So I'm very lucky in that I get to travel. 2 weeks ago, I was in India for the first time. I've never been before, but I got to go because I work for this company, and I was invited to speak at the Raman Research Institute on some of the more fundamental science that we've been doing in my group. And similarly, I've been able to go to places in the US and Canada and even Japan, which is something that I wouldn't have the opportunity to do otherwise, I don't think. So this is really important to me. And also, any excuse to come back to Bristol, I'm going to jump on, so you'll probably see me around here quite a lot. So yeah, I hope my perspective on industry has been useful to you in some way. If you want to come talk to me or Silas about more specifics in the research that we're doing, or you have any questions that I haven't addressed, then please come talk to us, because we're here over the next couple of days. And then I will just say one more thing. There's a couple jobs advertised on the website, but the website can never keep up with what we're actually doing. So don't see that as a barrier if you don't see jobs there or you don't see something that you want to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that we aren't hiring for that job. We're expanding at the minute, and we're kind of always hiring. So if there's something that we're working on that you're interested in, chances are we'd be in some way interested in you. So yeah, come talk to us. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
So you're working in quantum cryptography, but QKD is normally just 2 persons. And quantum random number generation is cool, but I think there's a lot known about it. What is, are you also doing stuff like multi-party quantum cryptography, working with graph states, verification techniques, stuff like that?
So we haven't even started on QKD yet. What we're doing, so our random number generator, although you say it's kind of a well-known field, we're trying to do something different in that we're doing device-independent random number generation, which means performing a bell test. So you're basically doing what you would do for entanglement-based QKD, just in one box.
Okay.
So the natural step then is to move into QKD, and then who knows, that's probably something we'll be interested in the future, but we're still early days.
Any other questions?
A lament that I often hear from academics who get further into their careers is that they find they have less and less time for research, and their time gets taken up by things like writing grant proposals and managing other people. It sounds like right now you're doing just as much research as a PhD student would be doing, which is roughly equivalent to, I think, where you are in your career. But do you have any idea what it's going to look like as you progress further along?
So I've only seen a year's worth of this, and I've been working in an expanding team, and so I guess my knowledge of this isn't very mature. But from what I've seen from the people that manage me, the organisation is extremely research-led, and people wouldn't work for us if they weren't given a lot of freedom in research, and they spend a lot of their time doing it. And from my experience so far, things like writing proposals, it's not something I've seen taking up much of people's time in my experience. In fact, I've only really seen a few like Innovate UK grant proposals being written recently, and that's taken up very little people's time. They're very dedicated to the research that they're doing. in my experience, no, but I'm sure that that is something that does happen to people in industry. Yeah.
Thank you. Any final questions? Okay, let's thank Sherilyn again. Thank you very much. So thanks.